Voidtrain. I've heard it's terrible, but I've also heard it's great. The concept alone has intrigued me for a while, so finally seeing it on sale, I decided to grab it. There's actually a lot to love here, but there's also a lot of stuff to criticize. The game comes from the publisher Hype Train Digital. Now, they have published games like Quasimorph, Stone Shard, Novalands, and even Tinkerlands, which I did a video on a couple weeks ago. But they've developed games like Voidtrain here, and also Police Stories. So they've seen some success between these games. I think this shows in areas where you can see the finer polish that they have, and some of the animations, even though some of them are kind of cheesy, they're still done really well. Some of the reloading animations are really cool. Just the animations and the visuals overall are really nice and have a lot of polish. I think a big part of the draw of this game is the world and the exploration. You're going through an endless void on a steam train, and there's a lot of mysteries to uncover, and there's dangers to face and to protect your train from. And as the game progresses, you get more and more freedom to explore further and further out into the void. You have to gather and craft and build and progress, because the idea is every time you enter a new gate, there's more dangers to face, and you have to be ready for that. The game does start off really slow, in my opinion. There is some cool stuff along the way to keep you hooked. You'll eventually find and be able to recruit these little guys called Rofleemos. I think that's how you pronounce it. Now for me, this didn't come until about 6 hours in, maybe more, but I did spend a lot of time gathering and crafting for the first couple hours, but it felt like they should have introduced this a lot sooner. They're basically your crewmates, and they can help speed up crafting or make smelters more efficient, just different stuff like that. And you can feed them and upgrade them with special mushrooms that you find. It adds a cool layer to the game, and I think they should introduce this pretty much as soon as possible after the tutorial. Now, another big part of the game is combat. While you're traveling throughout the void, you're going to have to deal with a shark every time you go through a gate. They're not really that dangerous, but they can mess with your train and interrupt you while you're gathering. And then there's also the outpost at the end of every gate that you can clear for extra loot. And eventually there's an arena you can find where you can fight waves of enemies for special rewards. The combat overall is pretty average. I would say for a survival game it's pretty solid, but with the level of polish this game has, I kind of expected more from the combat. The starter revolver you get from the beginning does feel pretty good, and every once in a while there will be a special reloading animation that looks really cool, but then some of the other more powerful guns feel a lot less good in my opinion. I think the biggest part of this, if I had to pinpoint it down, would be the enemy's reactions to getting shot. It's almost like you were just trading bullets with each other instead of using cover or some other tactical maneuver. It's pretty much just down to, did you bring enough armor plates, and can you kill the enemy before they kill you? Which is fine, it's not the worst thing ever. I think the combat would feel more punchy if the enemies would flinch when they get shot or something, or if the bullets felt like they had more impact. So to me, it doesn't feel great, but it's also not so bad it's a total chore, so it does its job. So on to the exploration, which is what I would say is the highlight of the game. Pretty much every area you come across besides the basic outpost is really beautiful, and the exploration coincides with the gathering. You're going to gather any materials you can find while you're out exploring, and materials are prevalent enough that it doesn't feel like it's interrupting your exploration. At first, exploration is just kinda average, and then, for me, 8 hours in, I unlock the winch, which lets you throw rings onto objects out in the void so you can attach to them and explore further out. This opens up the exploration a lot, and I definitely think they should have introduced it sooner. Again, it could have been me, I definitely took my time in the beginning, but I still think for a core mechanic like this, the sooner the better. A lot of your time exploring is going to be floating in the void, and they did do a good job with the zero gravity feel. It kind of just feels like you're swimming, but to me, right away, it felt like I was swimming in the void. So I think they did a good job on the movement. One of your core gathering tools is your grappling hook, which people have drawn similarities between Voidtrain and Raft, which is actually one of the things that made me interested in the game, and to be honest, I don't see a lot of similarities. I know in Raft, throwing out your hook and getting 5 or 6 items in one throw feels great, but with a grappling hook here, you're just going to get one item, even when you unlock the magnetic pull, which sucks items together. They're not placed close enough together, and the radius on the magnet isn't big enough to get multiple items unless you get really lucky. So overall, if you're coming here wanting more raft, I would definitely say you're not going to get it. But if you liked raft because you like survival games a lot and unique settings, then you might have a good time with Voidtrain. Now on to what is probably either going to be the weakest part or one of the strongest parts, depending on how you feel about it. This game has a ton of crafting. There's also a ton of inventory management. Luckily, you can increase the default stack size in the world settings, which I'm going to tell you ahead of time. It helps a lot, because in the beginning and then throughout the whole game until I changed it, I was constantly running out of space, whether it was in my backpack or my boxes on the train. I would say probably a third of my time in Voidtrain was spent in crafting menus. Some of the design choices might seem a little counterintuitive at first. For example, you can't craft something unless you have the items in your inventory. They can't be in your boxes. That was until I unlocked the workbench level 2, which does let you craft stuff out of the boxes, which is a good quality of life thing that you have to progress towards. Pretty much all the progression is based around researching, and you can trade in items for research points to get better blueprints for better items. There's also a lot of customization with the train, everything from the layout to the decorations to the walls to the floors and everything in between. All of the crafting is timer based, so you'll go to craft something and you have to wait a set amount of time for it to get done crafting. It's not a crazy amount of time. Everything I've seen so far is like a minute or less for most things, and also some of the new Rofleemos you can get can help with crafting time. And even though I'm not typically a fan of having crafting timers, it doesn't seem to be too much of a hassle here. There's also gun crafting. You can do everything from build a gun from scratch from random parts, or you can swap out parts of your gun for better parts that you find while you're looting outpost or maybe did the arena. Overall, I would say that Voidtrain is worth buying and playing if you love survival games. I personally love survival games, so I had fun with it even with its flaws. It's not a game that I'll likely replay, but with its really unique setting and overall polish, it was worth it. Another important aspect is multiplayer. I'm confident that being able to play with a friend would definitely bump up this game in terms of enjoyment. Just having two people to clear outposts and do crafting and upgrade the train would all make the game feel a little more fluid. So if you have a buddy that likes survival games as well, then that's another reason this game could be good. Another big factor would be if you love sci-fi and or the setting of this game, that could also make it worth playing. But if you don't, and if you don't particularly like survival games, then I don't think this game is worth getting. I don't think it does anything well enough to where it would appeal to most people in gaming. Something else to note is it's still getting updates. There's supposed to be the final chapter and some more things releasing this year. So that's something else to think about. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, leaving a like helps me out a lot. And if you have any thoughts or if you've played the game, I'd love to hear your opinion in the comments. If you want to see more from me, subscribe. I post once every other week on Sunday, so I'll never clog up your feed. I hope you have a good one. Peace out.